Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Off the Dome Sports Podcast, your favorite sports podcast where two, but sometimes three, sports lovers sit and give their hot takes off the dome. I am Red Fish.
Lionel Frankenstein here.
And I'm Rebo Hustle.
And we are bringing you our favorite team here in Baton Rouge, the LSU Tigers. We're going to be talking about the offense today, what we're expecting offensive firepower-wise from the 2024 LSU Tigers. Rebo Hustle cannot contain himself. Start us off, Rebo. What are we looking for LSU 2024?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to touch on first is what we're losing from 2023. That's Heisman Trophy winner Jaden Daniels. That is two stud wide receivers in Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors. And then your center in
Charles Turner III.
And so that's the biggest hole in this offensive line. You're returning 4 out of the 5 guys, and all 4 of those guys have started 3 years for LSU. One of them being Miles Frazier, who was a freshman All-American at FIU. The 2 tackles, probably first-round picks. And then Dellinger, who's been a stud since the day he walked on campus and has been mixed into the lineup, even as a freshman. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing more exciting than probably the best offensive line in the country. And then you're going from Jaden Daniels to Nussmeier. Nussmeier has little to no expectation of falling short. Everybody thinks that he's going to just fill the role just as well as Daniels did, and that's kind of off-putting to me a little bit. Like, there's not a worry that he's going to fail at all. I don't know what you guys think about that. And then I'll pass it over to Redfish for the running backs.
Yeah, and we'll come back around to Nuss because I think that's the biggest part to talk about. But to break down the running back room, I mean, like you talked about with the O-line, continuity is very important, and we're seeing that in the running back room. We only added 1 freshman in Caden Durham. But my question about the running backs is, what do we do? Do we stick to a committee like we normally do? Our 2 leading rushers from 2023, Jaden Daniels and Logan Diggs, both out of the room, out of the team. So what are we going to do at running back? I was talking to Rebo Hustle before we started, and my biggest thing is we have 5 guys who, if you see them touch the field, you're not going to be mad about it because we have 5 really talented running backs in that room. We have experience. You know, Josh Williams and John Emery, the only 2 national champions from the 2019 team, still in that running back room. So not only do you have guys who know how to play college football, but they have the leadership and winning capability that you saw in 2019. Then you have returning guys like Trey Holly and Caleb Jackson coming back for their second year in this Tigers offense, who both have a lot of potential. And then, like I talked about with Caden Durham, freshman coming in from Duncanville, Texas, with other highly touted recruits coming out of that same school, as well as a state championship that he just won this past season. So a lot of championship pedigree and a lot of talent coming into this LSU running back room. I wrote down 6 key points of this room, 6 things I think this room already possesses that I think will be very, very important to our success this season. That's experience, speed, power, explosiveness, versatility, and deception. So kind of where I'm breaking those down, experience is with Emery and Josh Williams. Like I said, they've been around for 5 years now. They won a national championship with us. They know what it takes to win. Specifically with Josh Williams, great pass blocker. And I think that gets overlooked a lot out of the running back room. But with the way LSU plays offense, I think it's really important to have a 6th guy back there who can, take the edge off, push a guy up the middle, do what he needs to do to make sure the quarterback has enough time to get a pass off. And Josh Williams is going to do that for you. Same thing with John Emery. He's been in the room a long time, and although he's had his struggles here and there, both on and off the field, with injuries and probations and getting kicked off the team, but coming back, everything that he's battled through, he's here, he's ready, and people are talking about him in camp, and that's really important. Talking about speed, Caden Durham coming out as a freshman, he's already looked at as the fastest guy in the room, and I think he's going to offer a lot of that to this team. I don't know how much field he's going to see this season. But when he does, you will see him pop because of the pure track star that he is. Power and explosiveness, I think, comes down to my favorite running back in the room, and that is Caleb Jackson. Not only did he gain, I think, 20 pounds in the offseason of almost pure muscle, he is just, every time you watch him run the ball, it looks like he's going to take somebody's head off. We saw a run against Mississippi State last year that was almost frame Leonard Fournette-esque, where he got the ball, was one-on-one with a guy, and made him look like a little baby child. Just absolutely obliterated a grown man on a football field as a true freshman, and now he's coming in as a sophomore and is getting all the talk in camp. We saw a practice video last week where he took a run head-to-head against Whit Weeks, who I know is one of our favorite players in this house, and made Whit Weeks look like a high schooler. Like, legitimately just ran through him like he was butter. So I really love Caleb Jackson, and I'm going to talk about like what each guy brings to the table and what I think the breakdown is going to be. But he's kind of like the power and explosiveness guy. And then when it comes to versatility and deception, I think that's the room as a whole. The reason I say versatility and deception is because you never know what you're going to get with this room. LSU could run out 5 different backs on 5 straight plays, and they have 5 different skill sets. So the defense has to prepare for each different one. Josh Williams, third down guy, pass blocker, and has the leadership capability to run that room. Like I talked about with Caleb Jackson, power and explosivity. Caden Durham has all the speed you could possibly want. John Emery can make a short gain into a big play like we saw against Florida State last season. And then the last guy we haven't really talked about, Trey Holly. Kind of an all-around guy. We didn't get to see him too much last year. He had 11 carries, but in those 11 carries, 110 yards, including a 67-yard breakaway touchdown against Army. You take out that 67-yard touchdown, he still had 10 carries for 43 yards, averaging 4.3 a carry. Pretty darn good for a true freshman in an SEC offense. Not only that, he had some troubles over the offseason that got dismissed. He is back fully loaded, ready to go with this LSU offense. So that's kind of what the running back room is looking like right now. Is it has a little bit of everything, and it's got anything you could possibly want. Yes, we've got a lot of power to run in between the tackles with Jackson and Williams and Emery, but we've also got the speed behind them with Caden Durham and Trey Holly. And then you've got a good mix of young and experience to really lighten the load on anybody who needs it. I'm just really excited to see this room. I personally think 28, Caleb Jackson, is going to be the guy to take the lead because of what he offers with, in my mind, the most potential because of his skill set and because of what we've seen last year in camp and how the coaches talk about him, as well as other players talk about him, which Reba Hustle said he heard about today. People on the team love Caleb Jackson, and I think the dedication that we've seen from him is going to lead him to be the number 1 running back. However, if you told me any of these 5 guys lead the team in touches by the end of the year, we still end up in a really good spot.
Yeah, kind of shifting the focus from the running back room to the receiver room. I'm excited to see just kind of who steps up this year to kind of fill the void that Rebo mentioned. Obviously, losing Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors over the last several years, it's just like the next man up. You go from Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. You have Kayshawn, who struggled a little bit, but still dominated in one of those seasons there. And then obviously last year with Brian Thomas and Malik. So looking at the crew this year, I think all signs kind of point to, in my opinion, Kyron Lacy kind of being the guy to really step into the true number 1 role. But that doesn't mean that there's not enough room for more mouths in this offense. I mean, Chris Hilton can step in. CJ Daniels, a lot of hype about him through camp so far. So even room for the young guys to really jump in there. Shelton Sampson has made some ridiculous plays through camp that's got me excited. So let's see what that receiver room can do this season.
Yeah, I feel like with both the running back and receiver room, it's going to be played by how well you can play in the game. And that's how the running back room has been decided every year since I can remember.
Yeah.
It's never been, you're my guy since Leonard Fournette, basically.
Yeah, I mean, every year since, we've always had some mix of guys. Even last year where, Logan Diggs definitely saw the most carries. Josh Williams saw himself on the field. Noah Cain was third on the team in rushing. Caleb Jackson saw the field as a freshman. Trey Holly saw the field as a freshman. So it hasn't been I hand the ball off to one guy and somebody else comes relieve him since the national championship year with Clyde, where we still saw other people get touches.
Yeah, and like 2022, Josh Williams was the lead back in that offense, and then he lost the job in 23 just because of how well the other guys in that room were doing. And that's going to be huge for the receiver room. Like, honestly, I can see 5 or maybe even 6 guys playing this year. All of them elite talent. Like Chris Hilton, I found jumped off the page the most last season, whereas Lacy, I feel like, can be a number 1 and lead the offense that way. Like, I'm not sure if y'all understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
like Hilton's the most complimentary.
The big play, explosivity. And Kyron Lacy steps in is just
there was no doubt
the dog.
Yeah, there was no doubt the national championship year that Jamar Chase was our number 1 receiver, but Chris Hilton can play that Justin Jefferson role where he still goes in the first round of the NFL draft. Yeah. Like Justin Jefferson would have been the best receiver on any other team, just like Brian Thomas would have been the best receiver on almost any other team in college football, but was able to play the complementary role that played stylistically a little bit different than that number one guy.
And you've got 2 genetic lottery winners, in my opinion, coming out of the transfer portal. CJ Daniels, like 6'4", runs faster than anybody else on the team. Also, massive amount of receiving yards and receptions coming in from Liberty. And then you've got a homegrown talent in Xavier Thomas. Yes. Played at Mississippi State. Going to be electric in the return game for sure. Also, another guy that we've had on the team for a little while, Aaron Anderson, could be a returner. Also, could very well find himself in the slot. He's probably the shiftiest guy in this room. And then, like Frankenstein said, Sheldon Sampson's making great plays, and it's hard to overlook that. But then again, he's still young and still has a whole lot more potential. And then to round out the offense, the tight end room, obviously it's way too talented because Mac Markway, who saw pretty much time in every game last year as a freshman, is transferring out because of how big of a step Pimpton has made and how big of a step Trey'Dez Green is making as a freshman. The room's still locked up by Mason Taylor, but then again, we're probably going to see 2, 3, maybe even 4 tight ends at a time with how good this tight end room is, and with especially if a receiver doesn't step up.
Yeah, there's been a lot of words out of camp about how great Pimpton has been in the red zone, which I think is huge because Mason Taylor was already a red zone threat for us. So if you throw in a second tight end, if you're running 12 personnel and you've got 2 tight ends who are really good red zone threats with Caleb Jackson in the backfield at the 5-yard line who can easily just put his shoulder down and get 5 yards on anybody, it's going to be really hard to stop this Tigers offense when they get on a roll. So I'm really excited to see what that tight end room can do. Right along there with you, Rebo.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement that the offense should be pretty explosive yet again this year, and it really won't be a question. The real question of this Tigers' success this year is going to fall on the defense.
Yeah, and we will do another video breaking down the defense and what we can expect from them, what we've seen from Blake Baker before the season starts, what he's been saying, and how he feels about the squad he has rolling in. I know as far as Joe Sloan goes, our offensive coordinator, he's talked about, this offense is expected to be great, and so far they're not living up to his expectations, and I know Joe Sloan has huge expectations for this team. So if he were telling me that they were meeting expectations, I'd get even more excited than I already am. However, they said Nuss has been the ultimate professional throughout camp. There's no risk of him losing his job. They're talking great about that entire running back room, and we even have 2 wide receivers on Biletnikoff Award watch. So I know that we are in a good spot based on everything we're seeing and everything we're hearing out of LSU. As far as the alphas go, let's go around, pick who we think it is going to be for running back and receivers. I already said Caleb Jackson's my running back guy. I want to say Kyron Lacey at receiver. However, I think because of the production we've already seen from him and all of the hype he's been getting out of camp, I think it might be CJ Daniels who ends up being our number 1 guy out of the receiver room. So I'm going Caleb Jackson, CJ Daniels.
Yeah, that's fair. I'll piggyback on the Caleb Jackson take. I think you're spot on there. And then at receiver, I'm gonna go Kyron Lacey. I think he doesn't have to go in there and be explosive, dynamic. As far as alpha, in my opinion, alpha is just gonna be like the most dependable.
Yeah, who do you go to on 3rd and 7 when you need that reception?
The guy who's going to step up when you need him to.
Yep, absolutely.
So my running back alpha isn't necessarily going to be the guy that gets the line share, but is going to be the guy that's most dependable. I think Caleb Jackson is going to get the most touches, but I think Josh Williams might outsnap him just because of the amount of firepower that this offense has. And so who you say is the alpha out of that, I think it's Caleb Jackson just because of how many touches he's going to get. And then wide receiver, I'm going to go with a different guy just because I've grown to love him so much, and that's Chris Hilton. I think that he has the explosivity to make this offense score 60-plus points a game.
60 points a game is crazy.
Boy.
We're taking it there.
Let's go Tigers.
I know Chris Hilton's got a lot of love in the room at LSU, based on what we've seen and based on what we've heard from people at LSU. If you want to know how people at the school feel about it, go watch our Sherman Wilson interview on the No YouTube channel. Chris Hilton was a guy he went out of his way to mention. So I know that's a guy who people within that coaching staff, people within the football operations even, guys who aren't on the field are seeing Chris Hilton make a lot of strides. So if we can get these young receivers who haven't had a chance to shine yet out onto the field and they show up and show in every day, it's going to be a really, really exciting year for the LSU offense. Like Lionel said, the question marks do come on defense, and we will talk about them. But we wanted to talk about the offensive firepower first, get the good out of the way before we got to cover the maybe not so good. But I'm really excited about what Joe Sloan can do with this LSU offense. Lots of talent on the field. And the best part about this talent is we'll probably see a lot of them back next year as well. So really excited to see this LSU offense. Go Tigers. Got anything, boys?
Let's roll.
With that being said, thank you so much for watching this episode of Off the Dome, talking about the LSU Tigers team. Like we said, we will be talking about the LSU defense on our next episode. Make sure to check out our old videos where we covered a lot of NFL stuff, fantasy football, NFL hot takes for the season. We're going to be doing season predictions, playoff predictions, Super Bowl predictions, all the good stuff that you want to hear, all the hot takes you could possibly get here on OTD. Make sure to check us out on X _Dome Pod, as well as at Be in the Know, KNEAUX, the only way to spell it. We appreciate you for watching. Thank you. We love you, and we will see you next time.